Alrighty, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Andres Segovia Show. This one is another, what I like to call the Critic Corner segment. For those of you that follow my program would know what that is, but this is where I get to talk about just whatever I want to talk about when it comes to entertainment medium like cinema, TV, and video games. I got Travis and Russell. We're going to be talking about soundtracks since we're all quarantined, or at least should be, unless you have essential provisions. Um, so I figure, you know what? Some of us have been probably rediscovering some of the oldies, and just why this came about. I was not going to do a thing about this, but I blame Travis because I think 3 days ago I messaged you that I was in an Elliot Goldenthal mood, and it just seemed fitting. So for any of you that are watching that are not familiar with any of these, sorry, there's no context to any of this. So we're hoping there's an understood you that you know what we're talking about. So when we started talking about Elliot Goldenthal, you brought up Heat, and I told you about Final Fantasy. I nerded out, man. It's like I missed talking about sounds. Like, dude, I gotta get my soundtrack friends together. We gotta talk soundtracks. So that's kind of how it all came to be. So like that's why I reached out to Russ and Sophia. She was gonna come with the more classical background. Also with, she's a Walt Disney character in her own right. So that's what I kind of wished would have been here to balance it all out. But it's all good. It's all good, you know. So whoa, let's see what we can branch out to. Anyway, so that's really what got me to talking, man. And I know that in your case, Russell, you've been posting that. Are you going through the Song of Ice and Fire books again, or is this a new one that you picked up for yourself?
Well, I've had the books and like I've picked them up, put them back down, and honestly, now is if I don't read them now, that you're stuck at home, I don't know if I ever will, but honestly, I'm kind of glad that I watched the show first and then read the books, because just the books are just so much more detailed, and I find myself kind of like after I read certain parts, like I just read like the Hound fighting what was his name? Beric Dondarrion. I don't know if
Oh,
it's like
okay.
season three or season three or something like that.
Yeah.
And I like read the chapter. I kind of went on YouTube, rewatched the fight. It's awesome, but there's just so much more in the books, that is great for time consuming and just it's been great. Yeah, I love them.
Yeah. So do you find when you read the books, do you play a soundtrack too?
I might. I actually, I should probably do that, but I like to listen
I
to
mean,
the
the
audiobook and read the book at the same time, like, kind of really focus
really?
on it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Because there's just so much going on. So it's just like if I really like have to, I would stop. I'm just gonna be like, what?
wait,
I need to read that page again.
but who's reading the book? Is George reading the book?
No, it's Roy Dotrice. He's like
Hmm.
this like famous audiobook dude. He does
Ah,
like a lot of stuff. Yeah, yeah. So I just kind of follow along, read along. Yeah, it's like I kind of really have to force myself to just like, shut everything else off and read
gotcha.
it. And I'm like halfway through it right now, so it's
Yeah.
been a really fun read. Yeah,
Oh, there you go. It's a soundtrack anyway. It's some form of
yeah.
soundtrack.
That,
So Travis, how long has it been? It was just like maybe 2 months ago. You got the Heat soundtrack by Ellie Goldenthal on vinyl.
Yes, I've been
yeah.
waiting for that on pre-order for like for 6 months. As soon as they announced it, as soon as I saw the cover, I was just like, yes, because he is one of my top 10 all-time favorite films. Love that soundtrack. It's so eclectic. It has original music. It has he pulled music from Moby and just all kinds of different sources are in there. Classical, original, contemporary. It's an amazing soundtrack.
And it feels cohesive. That's what I love about it. Some soundtracks can be jarring when you listen to them, but this one just flows.
Absolutely. That percussive piece that they did for the bank robbery scene. It's
Yes,
amazing. You cannot have that scene without that percussive piece.
exactly. Now, what I didn't tell you is I have the recording sessions to Heat. So if you want some more,
He always has one way to one up.
yeah, I
No,
know.
he always has to let you know he's on that other level that we're not. We
Right,
don't have
right,
those
exactly.
connections.
I'm like,
Hey,
all
well,
right, dang. What can I
hey, lucky,
say?
lucky you, you got vinyl, man. The best I could do is just 24 kilobyte FLAC, but I'd rather have the vinyl. It's just that I have no space
Let's
for
just
it.
have it.
It's an
Yeah,
amazing
it's same
vinyl
thing.
too. It's a colored vinyl. It came in a great like booklet with all kinds of stuff. It was really well packaged.
I just love the idea of vinyls, but like Andy said, it's just so much space, and it's like I already have books, movies, CDs. I'm like, I don't know if I have space for vinyls anymore.
I mean,
But
just look
I
at
love
this
the
room
idea.
right now. Look at it.
Yeah.
I know. I was like, I'm gonna need to find a better. This is my first time, so you guys are gonna have to cut me some slack.
I'm just teasing you, dude. Don't worry about it. Can hardly see anything anyway.
At least at least they're folded. It's folded.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, man, I don't know why. Like, as soon as this whole lockdown started, I'm like, wow, I find myself repeating Heat a lot. Final Fantasy: The Spirit Within movie. I don't care. Like, I'm the kind of guy. Like when I had Russell remembers what my soundtrack collection looked. That thing was massive.
It was huge. Yeah.
Yeah, and even though I had to liquidate some of my CDs, my Hans Zimmer autograph Batman Begins is right there. It's one of those special untouchables. Thank you for that, man. That was a birthday gift from him. Amoeba Records, right in Hollywood.
Yeah, when Inception was coming out, Amoeba did like a signing with Hans Zimmer, like a package. You get the CD, a ticket, or whatever. And so I'm like, oh, cool. I took it. They only said one signature per person, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take my Batman, and I also took the Inception. So, I was like, I just kind of sneaked it in there. I was like, hey, can you sign this? I was like, okay, whatever, And then it was Andy's birthday was coming up, so I was like, hey, this is perfect. I feel it's like full circle. He introduced me to this. It's like the least I can do. So I'm glad you still have it. It's awesome.
Oh,
it's
hell
awesome.
yeah, man. You're still gonna get rid of that? Forget it. That thing is enshrined, basically.
For real.
Like, Vilma, Brian's sister, she got me an OG Batman Begins poster. So that was like, it's there.
Yeah, you have your little shrine right there.
Well,
You're
how
like,
much you
don't
guys
touch
can
it,
see
kids.
over here on my shelf here. My microphone's probably blocking my boom mic, but I have this thing from Peru, handmade and etched bat symbol over Gotham.
Oh, maybe bring it to the camera. Yeah, because it is blocking.
It's blocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, boom, there it is.
Oh,
This is
nice.
from Peru, and what I can't hold up because it's too big is before the whole Michael Keaton 1989 limited edition Lego Batman set. My sister for my birthday got me the first original giant Batmobile, so that thing's on my shelf here too. So, I am Batman.
What do you think of the new Batman?
What do I think of the new Batman?
Yeah, or all the news that's come out so far. Have you seen
I've seen
the
it.
red and black picture?
I saw Daredevil.
What do you think?
Or you mean Robert Pattinson's Batman? Because I saw Daredevil, and I didn't see Robert Pattinson. I'm like, dude, season 4. Oh, what is this? Okay,
I don't know. We'll maybe talk about that later. Right.
Well, you got me sidetracked here, man. But I'll make this quick. This is what Matt Reeves is attached to the project. Michael Giacchino, I knew for a fact was going to be the soundtrack guy. And when they signed Robert Pattinson, you've seen this one, Travis. Lighthouse is just one of the most recent examples that can show you that this dude can act.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. High hopes
great.
after seeing The Lighthouse.
I have this high expectation for him in Tenet. It's like, dude, crush it, make believers of everybody. Because when Nolan got him on, I'm like, he's not going to get anybody on. Nolan got me to like Anne Hathaway, only for that movie though. and he made me stomach Leonardo DiCaprio. That's a big deal too. I like Leo.
He's great.
Don't get me wrong.
Oh, come on. You gotta give Leo a free pass.
I like Leo. Leo only on screen. Outside the screen, shut up. That's all I got to say about that.
You're like, shut up and act.
Thank you. Exactly.
You'd say that about half the greats. Sean Penn, Robert De Niro.
Yeah, pretty much.
Especially Robert De Niro. Dude, he's like, dude, stop talking right now, bro. Just stop talking.
Dude, I wish everyone was more like Harrison Ford. He just doesn't care. He's like,
he doesn't even care about Star Wars.
Everyone's always asking him about Star Wars. He's like, I don't care. It's probably like my favorite because fanboys are like, oh my god, did he shoot first or did you shoot first? And he's
oh my goodness, I know, but
I don't care.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, I love it.
We just know that he did shoot first, but let's not trigger them, okay?
Yeah, he did. I mean, I think that's what makes him Han Solo. Like that the fact that he would shoot first. Because that's what he is. He's awesome.
Yeah. Dude, are we gonna talk about John Williams then? He just celebrated his 80-something birthday. I forgot. I lost
Oh
count.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
That's
knew he had to be
crazy.
up there, but
Man, it's him and Ennio Morricone. We still got these two giants with us. And yesterday was Alan Silvestri's birthday. So thank you for Back to the Future.
yep.
Nice.
He did Back to the Future, and he did Predator too, the original Predator.
Yes.
He
Yes,
did a
did.
couple of really good '80s soundtracks.
Yeah. Yeah, because I sometimes like I used to get it confused with Predator and Commando because they're basically the same movie. But it's like just
Well,
kidding.
one is much better than the other.
Yes, it is. Let off some steam, Bennett.
Oh gosh, so bad.
That and
So
I've only
yeah.
seen that clip. That's like meme worthy. That's why.
Sorry, you're bleeding. I ain't got time to bleed.
well,
That's funny.
Sorry, I just love
hey,
that
two
guy.
two future governors in one movie. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But it was James Horner did the music for Commando, and Alan Silvestri did the Predator, and I that's why I kind of lost it there. I was like, wait, which one's which again? But then after once, like, yeah, I got it. Predator's Predator.
James Horner's career picked up a bit after that. Then he
Yeah.
moved on in the stratosphere after Commando. Then when Cameron signed him on for
Alien.
Alien.
Titanic, and he did a couple of projects I think with
No,
James Cameron actually.
well, you could say he did three, but he did Aliens with James Horner, with James Cameron, 1986,
That's what I'm thinking of.
and that was James said it was the worst experience he ever had with the director. It's like would never work with this guy again. 10 years later, they work on Titanic, and so then after that, they don't work together into Avatar.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
So
That's right.
it was a very sparse relationship, but James, I don't know how that conversation started between the two James to come into Titanic. I do feel that Titanic was kind of like a half-baked score, more synth heavy for no reason. Like, yeah, whatever, I'll make you some tunes because James' best score, I still pick it's Braveheart, man. He did
No,
so many
that's
great
what
stuff in the 90s.
if I remember correctly, that's what prompted him to ask for him to Titanic because they both had a terrible experience in Aliens. And then I want to say that James Cameron referenced that he heard the Braveheart soundtrack and he's just like, "Gosh, I have to work with this guy again." And Wade to him is like, "Hey, it didn't work. What didn't work the last time that we need to change to make it work?" And the two of them kind of resolved their creative differences and how they work to do Titanic.
Yeah, because Aliens is a fantastic score. One of the very few that's ever made me get like jump when I'm listening to the music. I'm like working in the office. I'm alone that day, so I pump up the volume. I hear the song LZ something, and it's very atmospheric until the flute kicks in. Like, what was that? Like,
Been used in trailers for years. The piece that goes along with the conclusion when the alien gets sucked out the vent or whatever at the very end, the cue that goes with that's been used in so many trailers over the years.
Yeah. Oh man. What do you have any favorites from James? Since we're on the topic of James Horner, Russ.
Well, you guys talking about Aliens? Actually, I kind of like the first one, the Jerry Goldsmith one, the Alien one. Definitely, I've listened to that one more. I haven't really listened to Aliens as much, but definitely Jerry Goldsmith for the first one. I always like the first one, anyways. To me, Alien is better than Aliens, just because I don't know. I feel like the horror factor of it was kind of what made the Alien pop.
Well, that's why they call it Jaws in space.
Yeah, it was awesome. I love that movie.
It's fine. Also, a bad experience with the composer. Jerry Goldsmith had a really bad time with Ridley Scott, and the funny part is he ultimately was upset with the final score. His final score differs a lot from the cues in the movie. They did a lot of editing to his score, and it's been like a sore point for years with them. I saw interviews like maybe 20 years later, and he was trying to be nice, but you could tell he still was just like, the score that I originally wrote, you should hear that, not what
right. What came out in the
it's funny because I kind of disagree with him because I actually like what Ridley Scott did to the editing of some of his tracks, even though it made Jerry very upset.
Creators are always going to be a little extra protective about their own things,
Yeah.
Well, at least it wasn't as bad as what happened to Alex North. I mean, he did the score for 2001: A Space Odyssey, goes to the theaters, like, all right, let's check this out. And it's like, the heck is this? None of the
Subdue
score made the
Danny,
final
like,
cut.
what?
That
Too bad,
is
buddy.
robbery, man. That
Well,
I'm sorry.
it's like being a composer for Terrence Malick. Maybe
Yes.
some of your score will make it into the movie.
Maybe
Maybe you'll
not.
get nothing.
That's
Yeah.
why I never seen Hans Zimmer as vexed as he was for that one, A Thin Red Line, because my top 10 scores, Thin Red Line's right there. That's
Oh,
hands
definitely.
down Hans' best. He never done anything like that because he was all about synth heavy and all that. He kind of brought back the 70s sound with like the whole synth thing because of his style. Everybody wanted the Hans Zimmer sound. But then he does this thing. It's like, wait a minute, 1998, where did this come from? It's like he went up against the Titan, John Williams, that year. But between the two scores, like Hans Zimmer stands out more to me just because such a pensive, meditative soundtrack. And as you know, Russ, I have the recording session, so it's like 8 hours worth of music. Brian, who's a friend of ours that works with me, he was in the office one day and he leaves and comes back throughout the day. He's like, "Your students teach you the same song? It's a different cue. It's different. They're just doing different takes of the same song. It's
This is
the
take 30. What you listened to was take 12.
exactly. That's why I'm like, dude, it's just that the nuance changes. And that no wonder I'm like, dude, no wonder Hans got pissed. The original score on the album is like 50 minutes. And like, what? And then when you see the actual score, and he did hours worth of this, and it was just chopped down so much for the final film. I think that's the stigma I had when I first watched Thin Red Line, because I'm like, this is the director that did what now? Because I was big on the Hans Zimmer. But then I'm like, dude, you know what? You can never, once you hear it, you can never erase Journey to the Line,
Yeah.
and it's just it just stays with you, man. It stays with you. The song and the scene is just that ticking clock will haunt you forever. It's just the way
No,
Christian
yeah,
after
no,
that.
amazing cue.
Yeah, and like Hans Zimmer said that Terrence Malick didn't do any favors for him, but the thing that got him noticed was the fact that Jerry Bruckheimer and Michael Bay used some of the cues for the first trailer for Pearl Harbor. So because it came out in it, suddenly everybody discovered the soundtrack. Because who really watched Thin Red Line? It's like one of the least viewed, watched Best Picture nominees.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Should be
but
more
in its own,
viewed, definitely, though.
It's funny because I think I saw it, if I remember. It was a big deal because when it came out, I was living in France, and in Europe, Terrence Malick is much more kind of well known on the art scene and stuff there. And so actually, a number of people had seen it when I was living in France when it finally got its international release back in, I want to say that was 1998, I think. So.
You guys are probably more Terrence Malick fans than I am. So let me ask you this, because Hans Zimmer did that one. The movies from Terrence Malick since then, which composer or composers has he utilized? 'Cause I know one of them repeated with him. That means he put up with him. But which composer has dealt with him since? Because his last project I know was James Newton Howard, but before that, who was it?
Oh my gosh, this is really bad because I was actually just watching The New World not too long ago.
Oh, that's James Horner. I know that for sure. James Horner.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm forgetting because I can't remember who he used for Knight of Cups or To the Wonder. I think I tend not to look at the composers for his movies because he uses so many outside sources that half the 3/4 of the soundtrack is usually not whoever composed the music for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm blanking on, because I actually just bought. I haven't watched it yet, but I just bought on Blu-ray. What's it called? The Hidden Life.
The Hidden Life.
The one that just came out. So I'll have to look and see who did did the music for that.
No, I told you that's James Newton Howard.
Oh, okay, that's okay. Sure. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure either. I think he makes a movie like once every 20 years or something. Like.
It takes 20 years to make a movie.
All right.
There's a documentary he filmed like days worth of film. It's like, dude, it's supposed to be like 2 episodes. Like, what are you doing? Still filming? Like, I don't know. I'm exaggerating, but that's what the producers on that one were losing their patience with him. But yeah, James Horner did The New World with Colin Farrell. I didn't watch it. Didn't care. The music, forgettable. I think Christian Bale kind of cameos in it. But yeah, that's about it. But when would you say, Travis, that A Hidden Life is a little bit more restrained in that sense for like what Terrence Knight normally does?
It's the first movie he's done since, since either The New World or since Thin Red Line that he actually worked with a full script. The last couple movies he's done have really just been completely almost improvisational, where he'll show up on the set on the day, kind of hand the actors a couple pages of, do something like this. They'll have no clue of the context, and he went really experimental with this last couple of movies, which it divided you, it even divided some Malick fans. But this one kind of went back to, I've watched some of it. I kind of previewed the Blu-ray when I got it, so I've seen like maybe 15 minutes of it. It looks a lot more like Tree of Life, or probably it looks a lot more probably like The New World, I would say. New World or Thin Red Line. There's more dialogue in it. There's some things that actually look like scenes. There's something of a real narrative you can kind of tell to it, but it's still in that Malick style. It has like that fisheye lens that he likes to use on all the characters. So it's probably a throwback to his comeback films, Thin Red Line, New World.
One of the knocks on Quentin Tarantino has been that I read it somewhere in some interview that he just didn't like that some other composer can tell Quentin what the sound can sound like. That's why he never worked with composers until The Hateful Eight, because he just loved Ennio's sound, because a lot of his movies are influenced by spaghetti westerns done by Sergio Leone and the sound of Ennio. So I'm happy to see that he actually worked with Ennio for one complete soundtrack. Hallelujah. I don't think it's Ennio's best work, but I think it was just recognition of his work for why he got the Academy Award. Final freaking Lee, but Alejandro Gustavo, Gustavo Santaloya, the dude wins 2 Academy Awards, one for Brokeback Mountain, the one for I Forget What. Or he's nominated for Babel. I don't know if he won for Babel, but whatever. It's like, dude, that guy has 2 Academy Awards, and Ennio Morricone had 0. Like, what the flip, man? Jerry Goldsmith only has 1 to his name, and that was the Omen, I think. It's like, dude,
they hardly ever get it right on the day. It's always you look back and you're like, what? How do you? Yeah, exactly. I stopped caring a couple of years ago about the Academy Awards. Honestly,
it's stupid.
They're a joke.
I know we could keep talking about like composers and directors and the way the relationship was. I think one that the sound is synonymous with the films just because they work so well. Wes Anderson and Alexander Desplat, they just go together. I can't see them apart, because it's like if I see a Wes Anderson movie, I'm already hearing Alexander's score and I haven't even heard it already. It's like, but no, I know what it sounds like already, and I like that. But just so I don't stay on films, because I wanted to switch over. Travis, when we're talking about films, and I noticed, film scores, and a lot of your favorite scores tended to be more on like the atmospheric side and moody side. It made me think about video games a lot, and it reminded me, because I did not appreciate it when Russell got it for me. This is how you were ahead of the curve, Russ. You got me Chrono Trigger. It's one of the few vaunted soundtrack collections that I have, and it's like, this was something every time I look at it, it's like, this is the score that I underestimated, because I didn't know what impact it was having in the industry. Because that score is from the 80s, isn't it?
Or it's an old game. I'm not sure exactly when it came out, but it's somewhere around there for sure.
Yeah, so it's kind of etched in my head now, where like I hear it, I know it's like, hey, that's Chrono Trigger. So it's highly respected amongst the video gamer community. So I had to tip my hat to you for introducing me to that one, because I didn't know that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of video game classical music soundtracks really don't get as much as cred as maybe film scores, but there's some really good ones. You've also introduced me to some Lair. I think it was called Lair, something like that.
Yeah,
I think it was
Lair,
like a dragon. Yeah. Oh, love it, John Demme.
Dude,
there you. Dude.
So, some might say he borrowed heavily from Revenge of the Sith by John Williams, but I'm like, that's the second composer that worked on it, not John's original music. But did you play Red Dead Redemption 2? I'm assuming you did, but did you?
I didn't finish it because I can't finish those type of games anymore. They're just way too long. But I did play it. Yeah, somewhat of a life still, but I played it for about cool maybe 20 hours, something like that. So I didn't really listen to all of it, but I love the first Red Dead soundtrack.
That's what I was gonna ask you, because that's a tall order, man.
I listen to that a lot.
I don't know if you heard it yet, Trav, but that Red Dead Redemption soundtrack, it breathed new life into the Western genre for a new generation. It just set the bar so high. That's I'm like, I don't know how the second one's gonna match it or even top it. I don't think it got there because I haven't heard a thing about that soundtrack. Like there's been no
Yeah,
rumbles
no,
about it. I
no,
think it
no,
fell
right.
short of too high expectations. That's give it a listen, find it on YouTube. And you introduced me like, hey, have you checked this one out? Because I don't play video games. So he sent it to me back then. And it stayed there. It's actually one of my top 10 video game soundtracks of all. So I should do a plug-in right now for those of you that are watching. The Soundtrack Corner is an exclusive show that I do on my website, www.theandressegovia.com. I will be announcing more about it later. But since we're on the subject of this and we're talking about different soundtracks, that's the whole point. I'm diving back into the well. When I did this show for the newsreel, I brought it over to the Andres Segovia show. So it's on every Saturday. Take a peek. I'm doing a series right now on the top 10, the top 5 TV scores for the past 10 years. So the past decade. So I'm working my way up to 2019. I'm kind of doing a count up instead of a countdown. I did a countdown for the best film scores, but now for the TV score, I'm doing the other way, ascending. So I can't wait to share with everybody what 2019 looked like because even I don't remember. But once that's done, video games. I can't wait to get to the video games. That's just because yeah, like Red Dead Redemption or Batman Arkham City is arguably the best Batman soundtrack I have ever heard in that medium. It's just it doesn't rival the style, composition, and sound of the animated series, but holy smokes, how do you do a theme song and make it carry over 4 freaking hours and not sound the same? That's amazing, man. It makes me want to play the game, but that is how you do an epic, gritty, dark, atmospheric Batman soundtrack. That's Batman right there. Oh man, that was good. It follows up after Arkham Asylum, so you guys haven't heard these guys do their work. There's no soundtrack release for the Arkham City, so obviously I had to go to dip into my
Yeah.
forums, my forum buddies, like, yo, man, who's got to share this one? It's like 4 hours, not enough. That was good stuff, man. And that one is on the soundtrack corner. So once that one comes out, keep an ear out for it. That one's really cool. But anyway, yeah, I could dive all deep into the video game scores. There's this one for 24, the show. There was a game about it. Sean Callery went orchestral for the soundtrack for the video game, which is why it's really up there for me. That one's might be my favorite. It has a really cool sequence called Wire to Blow, and look, for anyone that's been a 24 fan, it's a show that takes place over 24 hours a day. But without all the commercials, it's like 18 to 19 hours, depending on it, on how much you're watching. It's almost wall to wall music. The dude did 8.5 seasons and a movie of 24 and a video game, and not once did he repeat the soundtrack. Like one track, he never repeated it. Like, how do you do intense atmospheric action and not dive back into the well? Which is why I love his work on Homeland, because it's the opposite. He doesn't do wall to wall. The music just creeps in on you when you don't even notice there was music in the scene. Kind of like oh my goodness, one of our favorite was No Country for Old Men. You don't know when the music creeps up on you. You're like, wait, there was music there? It's like, what? Exactly. That's what he does for Homeland, and he does it to great effect. But Sean Callery is one of my favorite all-time TV, video game, and I really wish, because the rumor was Tony Scott was going to do the big box office film for 24 to finish off the story before he unfortunately jumped off a bridge, and we still don't know why. That was, like, to me, it's shocking. It still shocks me to this day. Just the Scott family, I don't know if they're keeping it really closely guarded to their chest, but this was freaking Tony Scott, man. He had a lot going for him, and he's such an accomplished director. But he was tapped to do 24. I'm like, dude, I could totally see that happening. I could see his style coming to Jack Bauer, because I just saw it working. Like, all the work that he's been doing with Denzel Washington in those movies, I could have seen it done for Jack Bauer. But then when he passed away untimely, the concept was removed from a film and turned into that 12 episode mini series that happened in London. but that's where it was supposed to be. I really wish I could have seen what Tony Scott had up his sleeve. That would have been interesting. Still, it hits me close to home because first of all, I know where he jumped, and as someone that's a suicide survivor, I can definitely relate to the pain. So I'm like, damn, man, why? Still asking why is a big deal. Just that I have more closure about Robin Williams, but I have zero closure on Tony Scott, and it haunts me to this day. But anyway, not to get so emotional, sentimental on that, right? But Sean Callery, definitely an inspiration. I love what he does. But since we're on the TV thing, I think the dude that will, like you mentioned, Lord of the Rings, Russ. Lord of the Rings, great accomplishment. You take the sound away, that's the soundtrack. The soundtrack is the sound of the film. The same can be said for the career-defining score that Ramin Djawadi did for Game of Thrones. That is, dude, there's just so much to do there. Like, you hear the themes, you know it. It's a more modern composition, with modern sound, with classical traits, because he gave a thematic meaning to every territory, every house, and in some cases characters. So that when he gets to do the action, I was like, yeah, of course, man, that's you doing you. But when he gets those moments to shine, like, oh, that's good. Like, I think that he really, because he can build atmosphere. He learned that from his teacher Hans. So is it called Light of the Light? The one about where Cersei blows up the scepter? It's just like just a long 8 to 9 minute sequence.
Like a 7, something like that. Yeah, it's like just a piano. It's amazing. Yeah, I think that's what he did great. I mean, if you're able to make a great, opening theme, you're already on your way. I think he has one of the best opening theme songs, and then just to build from there, like Reigns of Castamere, the way he brought that song to life with the the music. It's like you were saying, it's just amazing. I think definitely top 5, something like that, for sure.
And you hit the nail around the head there, because I kept asking myself, what the flip inspired that theme song? Because I always look to see, where does inspiration come from? Where did this inspiration come from? Because that's the theme for the overall narrative of the story being told. It's not a character's theme. Lord of the Rings had like pieces that come together and it's like, boom, here's the Fellowship. But this is not really something that carries over throughout the show. It doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
You just know which one's the Lannister theme. You know which one's the Stark theme. There's a Jon Snow motive, not really a theme. There's one you could kind of say there's a motive for Arya, not so much for Sansa, I think. But just to seem like, dude, I hear it, and I just love the moments where he really gets to just build the tension. I can't think of a Tyrion theme right now or a motive. I mean, there should be, but I don't think there probably is. But yeah, the light of House of Light, Light of the Light, I forget. But that song, which is why he kind of got some flack for the Night King sequence, because like, isn't this the same song? You just kind of left out the haunting solo boy chant or sing, the soloist, because that's kind of what haunts in the first time he puts it out, because as it crescendos towards the end and the intensities are rising, and then the violins are doing an ostinato towards the end, you're like, whoa, what is happening? Something's happening here. What's going down? And then whatever happens. You're like, whoa, that was good. Rewind.
Exactly.
Yeah, he'll be remembered for this, as a positive way, not at the show. I'm not going to get into it on this one.
We'll get into that next time.
Next time. Continue. So Travis, I don't have you for much longer, so I'm assuming TV is more on the classical side for you. Twin Peaks, you were mentioning.
Angelo Badalamenti. His partnership with David Lynch, but I think if you pick one piece from that entire oeuvre, it has to be Twin Peaks. I think that's the soundtrack that kind of defines him now. Is that Twin Peaks soundtrack? I think it's timeless. It sounded great when it came out, and I think you listen to it today, and it doesn't sound like that's a '90s soundtrack. It sounds like it could have been a film score. Quite honestly, there's huge portions of that TV show soundtrack that honestly they don't feel like it's tailor made for a TV show. It was kind of ahead of its time in that regard.
Oh yeah, totally. I think that, but that was, well, back then, yeah, it was broadcast television. But was that Channel 11?
That was
Oh,
a
was
main.
it Fox? Was it Fox?
I'm trying to remember. 'Cause that was
Maybe that was like
19.
NBC or something like that.
Yeah, because that was 1990. It was one of the three big networks. Was NBC, ABC, CBS. It was one of the big
Yeah.
three.
So I'm gonna give the shout out the doubt to what Russell just said there. He said probably NBC. Yeah, because they were setting the 90s. They were setting tones for everything else. Like you said, Twin Peaks was ahead of its time, both as a show and musically. And the one that was ahead of that set the tone for animated television ever since was also the Batman the Animated Series. Composition, sound design, storyboarding, voice acting, and just the music. Shirley Walker's music just stands at the time. 33-piece orchestra was able to hammer out all that all the time, wall to wall music, and that's why she unfortunately got her soundtracks were posthumously released by Sarah Bande, and I had to pick them all up because just I support the work, and
Yeah.
unfortunately I felt that she was not felt she was underappreciated or just prejudiced against the whole time. Just the story that's told. I don't know if this has gotten a little what's the term, embellished over the years, but the Symphonia of London orchestra, they're the ones that did the work for Batman, 1989 Batman with Tim Burton. And so Danny Elfman did the score for that one, but he only wrote it. He didn't conduct it. To conduct it, he brought on Shirley Walker, and the orchestra did not want to be conducted by a woman. They were protesting against it. Some of them were like, "We're not going to play," and she just commanded them, and that's the sound she was able to bring out, and that's where she got noticed, which is why she was the only one tapped to do Batman the Animated Series, because after Batman Returns, they wanted to continue the signature sound design, but Danny, just being busy with big box office productions, he's like, she can take care of it, and she did. She didn't get a chance to do her own theme, I think, until season 2, because they were doing Danny modified his 2-minute theme into like 50 seconds or whatever it was. But then when she was able to bring it out, that's when that's when the animated series was able to bring its own official sound separated from the film with the Batman and Robin theme. And no, she did 2 themes: the Batman the Animated Series theme and then the Batman and Robin theme. So then that's why, like, go ahead, you do the Superman theme when that theme came along. So she never got to see her appreciation, but true film, true soundtrack aficionados, she's in high regard. So that's why I hope Debbie Wiseman also gets a lot of regard for what she does, but she's out in the UK, so she has her own notoriety. But yeah, anyway, that's that on that, because those 2 shows, I feel they had. This is gonna sound a little weird, but based on the shadows and lighting that they use for the dark sets for the animated series and Twin Peaks, I think of Nosferatu, and the way Nosferatu had an impact on films since then, both horror and black and white. So I look at these 2, it's like they had that impact in the 90s that just shaped the medium thereafter. Both for that cartoons can be for adults too, and then Twin Peaks can challenge you beyond just the conventional stuff that was out there. It's like appreciate it. And because it was underappreciated, it was like an abrupt ending that finally got its due all these years later. But I didn't pick up on that, so I don't know how that was. But as I understand it, the Angelo, was it the composer? Yeah,
Yes.
he came back to finish the score.
Yeah, and he actually wrote a great new score for the new series that I think was on Showtime, and it included obviously cues to the original, but he wrote a lot of new music for that series and kind of plugged in the old music just really at certain key points. And same thing, it felt very, very contemporary, but kind of brought you back to to another time. It reminded you of the old score in certain places, but was distinct in its own way. Another soundtrack that I bought on vinyl. I have Twin Peaks. I have both Twin Peaks soundtracks on vinyl. So
nice.
You gotta collect them all.
Yeah.
Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Hey, dude, Travis, I don't want to hold you back if you gotta jump off because you said like 30, 40 minutes max, and I think it's
Work does call. The work does not stop. So
the work does not stop. Yeah, he's considered essential. He works for the VA. So
Okay.
don't give too much out. You know.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you where your hiding place is.
No, well, thank you.
Where's the bunker at?
Exactly. It's like where are all the politicians hiding right now? they're all hunkered down. Yeah. Well, anyway, dude, you gotta jump off. Go ahead. Russell and I will continue on a little bit more, and then we'll jump out. But we won't hold you back. Thanks for contributing. We'll talk again in the next one.
Absolutely,
Definitely.
Great talking with both you guys.
All right, Travis.
All right,
see you later.
I'll talk to you later, man.
All right, take care.
Thanks. Hey, since he's jumping off, I don't know if I tagged you in it. There was this song that these guys, these
the quarantine
Rangers
one.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Maybe that's a little bit too country for me. I don't know. But I was like, I saw most of it. I was like, wow.
Charlie Sheen was in it too. He got in on the fun. I think Brett Favre cameo at the end too. So like, hey, everybody. I didn't know there was a montage of a bunch of different people contributing to them. So they just got all together. But like, it spoke truth though. It spoke truth. It's like, dude, like fighting for toilet paper at the UFC.
I know. I was like, this is something I had predicted. I'm like, someone's gonna get stabbed for fighting over a bottle of water, and I'm like, it did end up happening, and like, it's crazy.
Well, yeah, it's Black Friday, but just more than one day.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, that's why this kind of time is crazy. You're too young for this one now. What year were you born in?
92.
92. You were born the year of the LA riots.
Yeah.
So we, since you and I went to the same church, the African American church next to that, and the entire plaza next to all that, destroyed completely. So that was crazy. I'm like, why would blacks destroy their own church? That I found that odd, but that was sad. Our church was spared because of the church was recessed and it had like on the lot and had like the perimeter fence all around it. But man, that was a war zone. George H.W. Bush sent the National Guard, tanks rolling down those streets in downtown Los Angeles.
Yeah,
those tanks rolling down.
I know the story. Yeah, I mean you gotta know the history of LA and
stories are one thing, but then seeing it, like living it, was the whole other thing. Because where you live, where I used to live, so like the Shell gas station on fire, the beatings on the streets, just having to be quarantined. So we're not there in this, that's like worst case scenario things get out of hand. We're not expecting it to get there, God willing, but there were two other events that did happen that it kind of feels like 2 in 1 right now. The Y2K scare, the hysteria behind it, combined with the effects of 9/11, where everything shut down. So we got two things in one. So I think people, to pass the time, are trying to to find humor in what they do, and that's why I'm like, being able to find myself again and geek out about like soundtracks and all was very fun. That's why I hit you guys up like, what? It's been a good time to feel like back in the day, just collecting soundtrack, fun with all that, and just trading tags. Hey, did you hear this one? Oh no, but did you hear that one? It's like, yeah, cool. Virgil and I once had a long drive to his place in Palmdale, so it was like a 1.5 hour drive that time. There was a stretch of time. This is when I had the Infinity. We had this stretch of road that went on for like 30 minutes. Like, bro, I'm going to play to you this long track from Cutthroat Island. We're not going to talk. We're going to let it play 20 minutes. And it was done. It's like, bro, that was 20 minutes. Like, I know. Encore. Those are the days, man.
Awesome. Yeah, dude. Those long drives, from like Anaheim to LA, just listening to Batman or whatever he had cooking up. Like, I love those days. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And somebody I actually, talking soundtracks, I actually want to give props to Jamie Newton Howard's The Village, because I feel like that movie the soundtrack carried that movie. Like, to me, that's not a bad movie. I'm like, it's a pretty good movie because of the soundtrack. Like, it carried. It's one of the few instances where I'm like, you know what, this soundtrack carried this film. Like, the emotional, the emotional highs and lows of the whole movie is totally like amplified by the soundtrack, even more so than most films do. So yeah, big shout out to The Village.
Definitely. And I'm glad you brought that up. It's one of my top 10 of all time. I think it ranks number 2 because that was my first James Newton Howard score. And someone recommended it to me in the forums when I was part of 2 forums. One of them, Streaming Soundtracks. Plug in for streamingsoundtracks.com. Go check them out. Listen to them on TuneIn Radio if you got it. Otherwise, go to their website because they're still streaming, and they got noticed by studios. So studios donate soundtracks because they only work as a nonprofit.
Oh,
So
cool.
it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I helped support them back in the day, and it's good to see they're still around. Because in all this, I reconnected with series like, hey, they're still around. Check it out. And I even saw the chat. I'm like, hey, I remember those guys. I remember some of those dudes. But anyway, there was that, and someone said, hey, dude, you gotta check out The Village. I'm like, The Village, what is that? Isn't that like that Shyamalan movie? Like Shyamalan movie, right? So like when we finally learned how to pronounce his name, so they're like, all right,
Yeah.
fine. And dude, I'm a sucker for strings. So when I first heard that
Yeah,
solo
same.
violin playing, oh,
The
what is
gravel
this?
road, man.
Oh, on the gravel road. Dude, I don't know if you heard the complete score. I think it's available on YouTube too. Listen to the end titles. Oh man,
No,
it's a
those are the best
combination,
ones. That's yeah, it's like
right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, this is part of something you don't know though. I got to talk to James Newton Howard. He was doing his debut of his first concert piece, and I couldn't get 2 questions into him, but I did ask him the key one, and it was about classical music. So I ended up bringing it up like, dude, I gotta bring up your work on The Village. So that's the first thing I did. It's like your work on The Village and Signs, or as I mentioned, The Sixth Sense. I'm like, you and M. Night are like our generation's Bernard Herrmann and Hitchcock. How was that like working on the score? So he told me, and to be honest, we're talking to he was talking about the soundtrack that we heard was the second soundtrack he made. He made a completely different score, horror all the way, and it wasn't working. And M. Night said, "Hey, I'm sorry to tell you this, James. It's just not working. Can we go a different direction?" Like, well, what direction do you want? And then he said, "Let's go romantic." Like, romantic? That's a whole other thing. So I have the complete score to it. So it has alternate cues for some of them, including the main score. So you have the main theme, piano, solo violin. Then you have the alternative one that he had, pure horror. And it's like, what what a
That's
contrast.
trippy. I kind of want to check that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was quite something, and it's definitely worth a listen. And when it gets to the end tiles, like when you finally hear the whole thing fleshed out, and even the alternative cue for those we cannot speak of, oh my goodness, it's just so absolutely gorgeous, and that's why like every time I listen to it, I just fall in love with it even more. Um, it's just a shame that we don't have something complete like on high quality to be able to truly listen to this. But in speaking about that classical music that James did, the second question I was going to ask him is like, by the way, was your end title "Sweet to the Happening" an inspiration for your song "I Will Plant a Tree"? Because there's about a 5-6 minute sequence that's directly from the suite. So I
He's
think
like
that
next.
that was my next question, but he did circle back to me. So like, okay, it's all good, it's all good. At least I got one in. But yeah, man, that was cool to get that insight from him. A lot of people gasped because they're like, "Well, you did it twice? Yeah, it sometimes
Yeah, I
happens."
mean, you would have. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's also a great story of sort of creatives working together and really finding something that'll really be amazing.
Yeah, they got such good rapport, so they're not like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave because of creative differences." And it's like, no, I just hate your guts. No, it didn't happen with them here, which is
Yeah.
why I'm actually a little surprised that James didn't do the score to Glass. I would have loved to hear like a sequel to Unbreakable.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that a little disappointing. I'm trying to pull up my list here of because I sent the top 10 to what's his name. There it is. So this is my top 10 film scores of all time. Honorable mentions to franchises, those don't count for me because if whether they know it's a franchise or they don't know it's a franchise, they got more time to like deal with the themes. They can
Yeah.
either ruin it or expand on it. So I'm not counting Star Wars, not Indiana Jones,
Harry Potter's
and
out.
yeah, Harry Potter's out, and just recently on an honorable mention because of last year, I had to put John Powell's How to Train Your Dragon Saga because oh my goodness, that thing is absolutely gorgeous. Let me. Can I call you later? Okay, I'm also going to wrap this up too because it looks like I'm going to get back on this. But my top 10 standalones. This is subject to change though because there's one standard that I think is going to pierce through on this. Cutthroat Island number 1, The Village, Thin Red Line, Passion of the Christ, The Kingdom by Harry Gregson Williams. I also have the recording sessions for that. Oh, it's just gorgeous. The Patriot by John Williams. The Hours by Philip Glass. Final Fantasy, Elliot Goldenthal. The Promise, it's a Chinese movie. The score done by Klaus Badal, who's a German. Fantastic. And because it holds a very special place in my heart, my first official score ever, Gettysburg by Randy Edelman. And I recently watched part of it. Oh my goodness, that music is beautiful. It's just absolutely gorgeous. That never goes away from me. Oh, that's just, hey, it's typical. We've got to wind this down. What are some of your favorite scores?
Scores definitely. I don't know if I have like top 10. You have actually some of mine. I would say The Village. I would say Taxi Driver. I don't know if you ever heard that one. It's really good. So we got Kingdom of Heaven. You showed me that one. Oh, that one's awesome.
Yeah.
Passion of the Christ is awesome. I actually am gonna count. Well, I don't know if the Lord of the Rings counts as a franchise because I don't know about the Hobbit.
Oh no. No, but I know what you're getting at. Lord of the Rings is man. That's a beauty.
Yeah, the Jerry Goldsmith Alien soundtrack. Big shout out to Inception. I feel like Inception is like maybe Hans Zimmer's best work, or at least like his most popular. I would say
it's his most popular work. He can't use it again.
Oh yeah, it's too distinctive to ever be used again. I mean, at least those music rights for the trailers if they want to like circle back around to it, but
yeah, but then he did Interstellar.
Interstellar, dude. Yeah, I don't know. I sort of prefer Inception, but Interstellar definitely had moments, especially if you watched it in IMAX. Like,
oh yeah,
I was like, oh shit, my ears, but like in a good way.
Yeah. Definitely there. And
Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yes.
Huge shout out, of course. You have to. Those are just some of that come to mind. But yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, I didn't put any here, and I mentioned that this subject to change because I need to find a space here for Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow by Edward Schwimmer. That's a one loud helicopter. Woo! Must be a military aircraft. Yeah, quarantine. Yep, there it is. The lockdown. They caught me. No, but Edward Schwimmer's in the past 20 years. This is one of maybe a handful, and I literally mean about 5 soundtracks that are done in the style of the Golden Age. So if you haven't heard Sky Captain, give that one a shot.
The Aviator.
The Aviator is great. I really enjoy.
Icarus.
I know you're a big fan of that one. Yes. I really enjoy that soundtrack for what Howard Shore does because he has a distinctive sound, and there's just something very classical to it, and yet modern. It's like, how did you do a classical sound and turn it into like modern? Because basically the film was trying to say the world of tomorrow was here. It's like this is Howard. Oh my goodness, what's this? What the guy Leo plays?
Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes, yes. So Howard Hughes is developing the plane of tomorrow, because the plane aviation was something new. So the score fits that. It's a classical composition that has a modern feel for the time. It's like this is the future. Whereas now we have something contrary because Sky Captain: The World of Tomorrow, that film was kind of like 300. It was filmed in blue and green screen. And that one was about 1950s, like throwback to the classic films. So they asked Edward to do a classical score, a truly classical score. So just the first 4 tracks would just level you with just this impressive classical orchestral composition. There's choir in it too, but I think my favorite standout will always be the Robot Army, because this is an example of how you can just use orchestra to create an environment and sound that is unmatched. You don't need synthesizers, you don't need sound designs to do it. Just do it with the pure orchestra, because the entirety of the thing is that there's an increasing danger coming, and you can't see it, but it's coming, and there's a lot of chaos happening in the metropolitan city. So then one of the characters is running down the street, she falls over, and then suddenly the cars, everything around her starts bouncing up, like, what's going on? And then the soundtrack is telling you something big, something heavy is coming. And then when you see it with the sound, and it's the music just lifts you, like, holy smokes, you can feel the awe and the danger and the sheer magnitude of what's coming at you through the music. That's what's beautiful. And it transitions immediately into the action song where Sky Captain comes to the rescue, which is one of the best ways to introduce a theme, and a heroic theme at that. So give Sky Captain a chance. That's just absolutely gorgeous. It recently got, I think La La Land Records did this. They recently released it as an expanded score, because it's just a gem that you can find in the past 20 years. They just don't make them like. That's why I'm like, I'm gonna have to make space in here. I've been turning more to that than I have with the other ones on that list, so I don't know which one is gonna make the chopping block. Yeah, yeah. Well, Russ, dude, this was fun. Hope you liked it too. I want to bring you on. I guess it's a tease. This has kind of been done to death somewhere else, but we got a beef to pick on Game of Thrones. You're a defender. I'm kind of not, but no, I'm just kind of kidding. But the thing is that you have a different perspective on it, and as I'm the one that was introduced to it because of the show and fell short, it didn't stick the landing. It's interesting to see where has it held up or has it not held up 1 year later. That's I think that's gonna be a good discussion for the 1 year anniversary. But until next time, man, I'll hit you up.
Thanks for having me, Andy. We definitely will have. We'll definitely do a Critic Corner or some Game of Thrones episode centric, because I know you're talking a lot of shit, so I'm gonna have to back them up. I mean, not saying that you don't have valid points, but I think there's so many factors that came into play with it that sort of unfortunately kind of botched the ending. Not due to the story's fault.
No, not at all.
More of the creators, but
I'm not even criticizing the story. It's like the story was aiming to be great.
Yeah.
The problem
it was all set up. Yeah.
That Dumb and Dumber rushed it.
They wanted that Netflix money or whatever they were going to do next.
No, it was Netflix, dude. Star Wars.
They had a
three-picture deal with Lucasfilm, and it's like, dude,
now they're not even doing that anymore.
You had 2 years to get Game of Thrones right. 2 years. That's how much expectation. 1 billion viewers for the first episode. What happened? It's like when even the actors don't like it, that's got to tell you something. So no, we're not in the wrong. It's just that, dude, this is how the franchise will be known. This is what the show will be remembered for. That it lost its way and just totally botched it at the end because these guys were in a hurry. You went from 6 episodes. Okay, you announced that 2 years out, so that means you guys are doing great. It's gonna be 1.5 hour long episodes. No, it was bull. Too much plot armor. You subverted all the character depth that was built. If anything, everybody should be outraged as to what happened to Tyrion. That is the greatest example of where the show went wrong. That is not Tyrion Lannister. So, no, yeah, I back it up. For someone that can tell you that you'll probably never see the end of the books, this is the only closure you probably ever see of Game of Thrones, and that's sad. That is so sad.
That's why I was like, I need to read these books.
Because here's the thing.
It's not the way they should end.
Do you remember how George R.R. Martin said the only way that he will allow his books to be adapted into a TV show, especially while he was still writing it, was if the producers, the showrunners, whatever, if they could guess how it ends. And there was really no much material there. So when they realized R plus L equals J and other things, he said, you could do the show. That is how they got the green light. So why did they royally screw it up? The books
that's what that's where they got the okay from that question. We're like, all right, let me see if you actually know the books. But I feel like the problem was they ran out of material, and I don't think George was like willing to kind of give anymore. So I
well,
feel like
he
you know,
wanted
like,
two.
well, they have the broad strokes of like how it's gonna end, but not how they got there. And so I feel like, well, all right, we're gonna have to shorten this because we don't really know the rest of it, and I think it just kind of exposed them to, you know what, maybe not being as geniuses as they thought they were, and it was actually more of the books that kind of carried the entire show, like
Yes.
in the material. But
They sacrifice character for spectacle, and that's what's disappointing. Because it
I
should
mean, I
have been
still love
great.
the show, but yeah, I
Well,
mean,
there's things to love about it. It's just that it's just unfortunate. It's like if you know something's gonna end bad, it's hard to really go back to it. That's why I can't watch the Disney Star Wars stuff because of it. But yeah, but anyway, man, we could go on and on like this for hours.
yeah. We should talk about Star Wars too. Yeah, we also need to do like a Star Wars.
Oh, there will be.
Yeah.
Oh, there will be. There's some defenders. I'm like, you want to defend this? Come on, and and try to defend this dumpster fire.
Yo,
Because
the future's gonna be in TV and the animated series. Clone Wars is amazing. Mandalorian
oh my
was
goodness, dude,
cool, but
please pray that they're not ruining it because they've already injected the SJW stuff to what is it called, the Bad Batch episodes, whatever it is, because it looks like they're destroying that one too. That's what the concern is right now because it's already infected some of it. Like a controversial scene that shouldn't be controversial was that someone drew on the side of one of the rebel planes, not one of the rebel planes, one of the Anakin's plane or something, like a Padme, but kind of.
But it's kind of like it was based on like World War II, you know, fighters who would always like
What?
paint, you know, women
Exactly.
or whatever on the side of the planes. Like that's just it was like, you know, kind of using history to, you know, fuel your fiction or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
I don't see anything wrong with that. Like,
no, exactly. There's nothing wrong with it. But the higher ups at Lucasfilm said, no, this is the Me Too movement. That's very sexist. Take it out. So they had to edit it out. It's like, wait, what was wrong with it? So that's when the cracks started showing. So some people are concerned. We'll see where things go. But let me know because I haven't been able to start that one. I was going to jump on The Mandalorian until they try to tie it into the news Disney strategies. Like, screw it. I'm not going to watch it because I know it's going to disappoint me. So I'm like, forget it. Baby Yoda's not worth it at this point because I'm going to be
you're like, just stick with the memes.
Yeah, that's the only good thing to come out of all this. Anyway, Russ, I gotta jump off too. So man, hey, thanks man for making time to join me up on this one, and we'll talk next time.
All right, Andy, take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.